There is a question I want you to sit with before I say anything else, before I offer you a single teaching, a single insight, a single thread of wisdom. It is not a rhetorical question. It is not a setup for a lesson. It is a real question, a living question, and if you allow it to land where it needs to land, in the deepest and most honest chamber of your heart, it will reveal to you something that may alter the entire trajectory of what you are creating in this life. The question is this: how many hours a day do you actually live inside your desired state? Not visualize it, not affirm it, not think about it in passing, not hope for it in the quiet corners of your mind. Live in it, be it, breathe from inside of it. How many hours? Be honest. Let the full weight of that question settle into you, because this is not about guilt, and this is not about judgment. This is about precision. This is about understanding, at the level of spiritual law, exactly why things are moving the way they are in your life. And when you are truly honest, when you strip away the self-flattery and the hope and the optimism, you will likely arrive at the same answer that most sincere students of this work arrive at. 1 hour, maybe 2, perhaps less. That golden window before sleep, that sacred and beautiful pocket of time when your practice is alive and the feeling is vivid and real, and the scene behind your closed eyes pulses with a kind of warmth that makes you absolutely certain in the marrow of your being that what you want is already yours. You fall asleep in that state, you feel it, and for a brief, breathtaking window, you know. And then morning comes. Within 5 minutes, sometimes less, it is gone. The phone is in your hand. The weight of the day has already settled across your shoulders like something familiar, something expected. You remember what your circumstances look like. You remember what the numbers say, what the mirror shows, what the silence in your inbox confirms. And just like that, you are back in the old state, back inside the familiar, suffocating arms of the very thing you are trying to leave. You gave your desired state 1 hour. You gave your old reality 23. And then you wonder, with genuine heartbreak, why the manifestation has not arrived. Tonight, we are going to move through that mystery together, and we are going to do it not with a new technique, not with a more elaborate practice, but with a fundamental and permanent shift in how you understand what manifestation actually is and what it actually requires of you. Understand this: your consciousness is not like a light switch. It is not something you power on for your evening practice and then allow to go dark until tomorrow. Your consciousness is always on. It is always running. It is always producing reality from whatever you are being in this moment, and the moment before it, and every moment stretching back through the hours of this day. This means you are manifesting right now as you receive these words. You were manifesting this morning when you woke. You were manifesting in the car, at the desk, in the kitchen, in the silence between conversations. You were manifesting at 3 in the morning when you were not thinking about any of this at all. The creative process never pauses to wait for you to start your session. It never sleeps while you are distracted. It never takes a break. It is always, always, always producing reality from whatever assumption is dominant in your consciousness at that moment. So the only question that has ever truly mattered is this: what assumption is dominant in your consciousness most of the time? For most people, the honest answer is their current circumstances, their current identity. The familiar, grooved, deeply rutted channels of thinking and feeling and being that have been laid down over years and decades into something that feels less like a habit and more like gravity. They assume their desire for 1 hour. They assume their circumstances for 23, and they are genuinely shocked when the 23 wins. But of course it wins. It has to win, not because the universe is indifferent to your longing, not because you are somehow unworthy of what you desire. It wins because the law is precise. Because manifestation does not come from what you do for 60 minutes in a state of beautiful, focused intention. It comes from what you are most consistently. And if you are most consistently someone who does not yet have the thing, someone who wants it, works toward it, hopes for it, carries the quiet ache of its absence in your chest all day, then that is exactly and precisely and without exception what must appear in your physical world. Not because the law is cruel, because the law is exact. Now, before I give you the framework that will change everything, I need you to understand something that most people never examine. Something that sits so quietly in the architecture of your daily experience that it becomes essentially invisible. I call it the default state. Your default state is the state your consciousness automatically returns to when you stop paying deliberate attention. It is your mental home base, your psychic resting position, the place where your awareness drifts when life moves fast and you are not consciously steering. And for the vast majority of people, the default state is not the wish fulfilled. It is the familiar. It is the accumulated weight of everything they have experienced and believed and rehearsed and told themselves for years. Think of it like a rubber band. You stretch it toward your desired state. You pull it away from the center. And as long as you are actively pulling, as long as your intention is focused, and your feeling is alive, and you are present in the practice, you are there. You are in it. But the moment your attention shifts, the moment life intrudes, or exhaustion takes you, or you simply stop thinking about it, the rubber band snaps back. That is why your manifestations are slow in coming. Not because your technique is wrong, not because your visualization lacks vividness, not because the universe has not heard you. It has heard you. It always hears you. The delay is because your default state is still your old reality. And the real work, the deep, permanent, lasting work, is not to stretch the rubber band harder during your practice. It is to move the center, to make the new state your default, to embed the wish fulfilled so deeply into the fabric of your consciousness that when your attention drifts, it does not drift back to lack. It drifts back to having. That is what it means to live in assumption 24 hours a day. Not white-knuckling your way through every waking hour in a state of exhausting mental vigilance. Not policing every thought with a kind of anxious surveillance that would drain the life from any spiritual practice. It means moving the center. It means making the wish fulfilled your new normal, your new automatic, your new home. And I am going to show you exactly how to do that. Let this settle into your spirit as we continue. Let us begin where every day begins, the morning. Because the morning is where most people lose the entire day before it has even properly started. You wake from your practice, the feeling still warm in your chest from the night before, that settled golden certainty from the scene you fell asleep inside. And in that moment, those first 30 to 60 seconds of returning consciousness, you have something extraordinary at your disposal. Your conscious mind is still soft. The defenses are still low. The old patterns have not yet fully reasserted themselves. The channel between your subconscious and your waking awareness is still open, still porous, still receptive in the way it only is in those few sacred moments between sleep and full waking. And most people throw it away. They reach for the phone, they check the messages, the news, the notifications, the numbers. They begin mentally rehearsing the problems of the coming day. And in doing so, they hand the keys of their consciousness over to their circumstances before they have even planted their feet on the floor. Here is what I want you to do instead. The moment you wake, before you move, before you reach for anything at all, before a single conscious thought about the day ahead is allowed to form, simply be in your desired state for 60 seconds. Not visualize it, not think about it like a concept. Be it. Feel yourself as the person who already has what you desire. Let that identity settle over you, the way warmth settles through a still and sleeping body. Completely, naturally, without force. You are not performing a technique. You are not starting a practice. You are simply recognizing what is already true in consciousness. 60 seconds. That is all. And then, and this is everything, you do not get out of bed to begin working toward your desire. You get out of bed as the person who already has it. Feel this deeply, because that distinction seems small, and it is the entire difference between someone who manifests and someone who merely practices manifesting. When you rise working toward it, you are in every step and every breath coming from a place of not yet there. And not yet there is the most powerful assumption you can make. But when you rise as the person who already has it, every action, every gesture, every cup of coffee made, every morning errand run is saturated with the frequency of having. Not because you are performing anything, because the assumption underneath everything is different. This is how you set the operating system for the entire day. This morning practice is non-negotiable. Not when you feel inspired, not when the feeling comes easily. Every day without exception. 60 seconds. And those 60 seconds compounded over days and weeks and months will move the center. Now as you move through the hours of your day, something is happening constantly that most people never stop to examine. You are talking to yourself. Right now, even as you receive these words, there is a voice running in the background of your mind, commenting, judging, planning, worrying, remembering, rehearsing, a constant, unceasing inner conversation that shapes with absolute precision what you are assuming at every moment. And for most people, that inner conversation sounds like the voice of realism. It sounds like honesty. I cannot afford that. Why does this always happen to me? Nothing ever works the way I want it to. I am so tired of being alone. I do not have enough. I am not enough. And it sounds reasonable because it sounds like a person who has simply learned to see things as they are. But you must realize what that voice actually is. It is the loudest, most persistent assumption machine you own. Every single one of those statements is an assumption. Every time you think, I cannot afford that, you are occupying the state of someone who cannot afford it. And that state is being impressed on your subconscious with all the authority of a deeply felt conviction. Every time you think, nothing works out for me, you are stamping your reality with a seal that the creative law will honor without question or exception. You are doing this all day, hundreds of times, thousands of times. While your evening practice bravely works to establish the wish fulfilled, your inner conversation is spending 23 hours dismantling it, thought by thought, assumption by assumption. What must change is this. Your inner conversation must become the running monologue of the person who already has what you desire. Not forced, not screamed through gritted teeth in the language of affirmations, but genuinely, naturally, thinking from the new state instead of about it. When you see something you want, the thought is not, I cannot have that, but of course I could have that whenever I choose. When something does not go as planned, the thought is not, why me, but this is unfolding exactly as it needs to, even if I cannot yet see how. When you are alone and your heart aches, the thought is not, I am so lonely, but I am deeply loved, I am never truly alone. The love I desire is already mine in consciousness. This is not denial. This is not the cheerful suppression of genuine experience. This is the deliberate, conscious, fully aware choice to think from your desired identity rather than from your current circumstances. And in the beginning, yes, it requires vigilance. You will catch yourself in the old conversation dozens, then hundreds of times a day. That catching, that moment of recognition, that is the practice. That is in fact the most important practice I have ever described to you, because when your inner conversation permanently shifts, your outer reality has no choice but to follow. It is law. As within, so without. As above, so below. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. These are not metaphors. They are descriptions of a precise and impersonal creative mechanism. Now, I am a practical man, and I know you cannot monitor every single thought in a state of relentless mental surveillance. That would exhaust you and defeat everything. So here is a simple system, deceptively simple and profoundly effective. Set an alarm every 2 hours. When it sounds, pause. Not for 10 minutes, not for 1 minute, just for 10 seconds. Ask yourself one question. What state am I in right now? Not what are you doing, not how do you feel. What state? Whose consciousness are you operating from in this moment? The person who has your desire or the person who is still waiting for it? If you have maintained your assumption, acknowledge it, feel it deepen. If you have drifted, and you will drift, everyone drifts, simply return. No drama, no self-condemnation, no spiral of guilt or frustration, just, oh, I drifted, I am back, it is done. 10 seconds, every 2 hours. Do this for 7 days and watch what happens. By the end of the first week, you will begin catching yourself drifting even without the alarm. Your consciousness will become self-correcting. By the end of the second week, the new state will feel more natural than the old. By the end of the month, it will not feel like maintenance. It will feel like you. But now I must address the hardest part. The part that trips up even the most sincere, most dedicated students of this work. Contradictory evidence. You are maintaining your assumption well. Your morning practice is steady. Your inner conversation is shifting. And then something happens in the world. The bill arrives. The test results come back. The silence from the person you love stretches longer than you can hold. Your bank account shows you a number that seems to disprove everything. And in that moment, that precise, knife-sharp moment of confrontation with the appearance of contrary evidence, something old and powerful rises up in you. Fear, doubt, the gravitational pull of the old state, suddenly enormous, yanking you back with a force that makes all your practice feel like tissue paper against the weight of what seems real. And most people in that moment give in. They react. They catastrophize. They swim down into the fear and the evidence and the appearance of things, and somewhere in the spinning they say, I knew it was not working. And with that reaction, everything they have built collapses. Now, I am not going to tell you to pretend you do not see what you see. I am not asking you to paste a performance of peace over a genuine experience of fear. But I am going to tell you something that changes the nature of every circumstance you will ever encounter. What you see is old data. If consciousness creates reality, and it does, it absolutely does, then what is appearing in your physical world right now is not your current assumption made manifest. It is the physical shadow of a past assumption. It is yesterday's consciousness made solid and visible. It is, quite literally, old news. The low balance is not your present reality in consciousness. It is the echo of a state you used to occupy. The silence is not evidence of failure. It is the delay between a shifted inner state and its physical crystallization. The manifestation is already done in consciousness. What you are looking at is merely the old reality finishing its journey into form. So when the contradictory evidence arrives, you see it. You acknowledge it. You do not pretend it is not there. And you do not let it move you. You say to yourself, not as performance, but as genuine recognition, this is old data. This is not my current reality in consciousness. I see it, and I choose to remain in my assumption anyway. And every single time you do that, every single time you choose the assumption over the appearance, you send a signal to your creative consciousness that is more powerful than any visualization session you have ever done. You are demonstrating the depth of your conviction. You are showing the law what you truly believe. The scripture says, "Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." That is not poetry. That is a precise instruction for exactly this moment. Do not let the appearance conform you back into the old state. Renew the mind. Return to the assumption. It is done. Let that land. As your day draws to a close, before you surrender to sleep, there is one final and crucial practice. Review the day, not to judge yourself, not to catalog your failures, not to replay every moment you drifted with a cold and critical eye, but to acknowledge and to learn. Ask yourself where you successfully maintained your assumption today. Ask yourself what triggered the drift when it came. Ask yourself how you responded when the evidence contradicted you. And acknowledge every single win, because every moment you caught the old thought and chose to return, that is not a small thing. That is the law of assumption working in your favor. That is the new pattern becoming stronger than the old. Celebrate it, and then do your SATs practice, lovingly, unhurriedly, with full understanding of what you are doing and why. Feel your desire fulfilled, make it vivid and present and warm and real, and surrender into sleep from inside that state. Because here is something that most people never fully absorb. The work continues while you sleep. Your subconscious mind does not rest. It is always running, always processing, always creating from whatever state you last impressed upon it before consciousness faded. When you fall asleep in the wish fulfilled, your subconscious spends the next 8 hours as a creative engine, arranging circumstances, magnetizing coincidences, opening doors you did not know existed, preparing the physical world to receive what you have already established in consciousness. 8 hours of creation while you simply rest. If you fall asleep in worry, your subconscious works all night to justify the worry. If you fall asleep in the feeling of abundance, your subconscious works all night to realize abundance. Even sleep becomes part of your 24/7 assumption. You are not resting from your desired state, you are deepening it. Let this settle into your spirit, because this is the thing that most people miss. The goal is not to maintain a practice forever. The goal, the true and beautiful and liberating goal, is identity. There are 2 phases to this work. In the first phase, the practice phase, you are someone who consciously and deliberately chooses their assumption. You monitor the inner conversation. You do the morning practice. You check the state every 2 hours. You catch the drift and you return. This requires effort and vigilance and persistence. It is necessary. It is valuable. But if you persist, something begins to shift at a level deeper than practice. You stop being someone who is practicing being abundant. You simply are abundant. You stop being someone who is maintaining the assumption of love. You simply are loved. The assumed state stops being something you do and becomes something you are. The new pattern becomes stronger than the old one. The new identity becomes more real and more natural and more familiar than the old one ever was. And at that tipping point, at that extraordinary moment that every sincere student of this work eventually reaches, living in assumption 24 hours a day requires no effort at all. Because you are not trying to maintain a state anymore. You are simply being yourself. And yourself is someone for whom it is already done. That is the ultimate destination of this work. Not perfect technique, not disciplined practice maintained indefinitely by sheer force of will, but a genuine, permanent, effortless shift in who you are. The shift that Paul described as putting on the new man. The shift that Neville described as dying to the old self and waking in the new. The shift that every mystical tradition in the history of human spiritual experience has pointed toward in its own language and its own imagery. You become the thing you desired, not because you earned it, not because you forced it, because you became the one who already has it. So here is the challenge I am placing before you. 7 days, beginning tomorrow morning. Not to try, not to hope, to commit. 7 days of waking into your desired state before anything else. 7 days of monitoring your inner conversation and choosing, every time you catch the old voice, to think from the new identity. 7 days of checking your state every 2 hours and returning without drama when you drift. 7 days of remaining in your assumption when the evidence contradicts you, especially then, because that is when the assumption is most powerful and most tested. 7 days of falling asleep in the wish fulfilled. 7 days, fully committed, no exceptions. And I will tell you not as encouragement but as the law, that by day 7 something will be different. Not might be different, will be different. The new state will have taken root in a way it has never had the opportunity to take root before, because you will have given it not 1 hour out of 24, but all 24. You will have given it your mornings and your middays and your evenings and your sleep. You will have given it everything, and the law, the precise and impersonal and entirely faithful law, will respond to that totality in kind. Continue for another 7 days, and another. And at some point, and you will know it when it comes because it feels like exhaling after holding your breath for years, the practice will dissolve into being, and you will simply be the person you always desired to become. Let me close not with a conclusion but with a truth. Staying in assumption 24 hours a day is not about perfection. You will drift. I drift. Every practitioner of these principles, at every level of understanding, drifts. Drifting is not failure. Drifting is human. The only thing that matters, the single thing, the one distinction that separates the person who transforms from the person who remains, is what you do in the moment you catch yourself drifting. Do you spiral? Do you catastrophize? Do you tell yourself it is not working, that you are not capable of this, that it is hopeless and you are foolish to believe? Or do you simply, quietly, without drama or self-judgment, return? Oh, I drifted, I am back, it is done. That return, that quiet, faithful, persistent, unjudging return to the desired state, that is mastery. That is the whole of the practice distilled to its irreducible essence. Not never drifting, always returning. Do it enough times, faithfully enough, lovingly enough, and the new state will eventually become stronger than the drift. The new identity will eventually become more familiar than the old fear. The wish fulfilled will eventually become not something you practice, but something you simply and permanently are. And at that point, the manifestation is not coming. It is already here. It has always been here, waiting for you to become the version of yourself for whom it was never in question. From this moment forward, make the decision, not to try, not to hope, to commit. You are someone who lives in the state of the wish fulfilled, around the clock, around the calendar, in every waking moment and every sleeping one, until that state becomes indistinguishable from what you simply, naturally, permanently are. Assume it is done. Live as though it is done. Be someone for whom it is done. This is how you manifest your desires. This is how it has always worked. This is the only way it has ever worked. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, around the clock, without exception, until the assumption becomes the identity, and the identity becomes the life.